Detective Anderson just brought in a girl to question her about Coach Terry. She said that he had a bloody nose. At least that's what he told her. She said she saw blood on his shirt and that she saw him drive off in a white van. Okay, so Detective Anderson has brought two people in, and immediately they both said it was Coach T. They both saw him with blood on his shirt. Both times he said he had a bloody nose, and both times they saw him in the white van. So I don't know who else it could be right now, but that's just what's been happening. They interviewed another person and she gave the same story as everybody else, but she's also a cab driver. He caught her cab. She drove him to the train station to get out of town. Cops are now at her house. They're searching through his stuff, taking his belongings, and a news crew showed up. And that's like kind of the big update so far. So his lawyer came and him and his lawyer had a discussion, and the detectives had like their discussion, and the detectives have his fingerprints at the crime scene, but they also have multiple eyewitnesses who say that they saw him there at the crime scene, and also the lady who said that she dropped him off at the train station. But he said that he wasn't there, that he was at a seminar for an author who like writes mystery books, and he said that I have an autograph of him and the date and the time saying that I was there, and I was there with other English teachers so they could vouch for me. So now all the detectives are doing is they're waiting to see if the DNA matches his DNA, and the DNA is coming back from the hospital. So we're gonna find out that if it's his DNA or if it's not, but his fingerprints are there. So that's what's kind of making it a little weird. Okay, so the DNA test hasn't came back yet, but he did go to jail. He's gonna spend the night in jail, I think. I don't know. And then Fred Peterson's wife died. I'm pretty sure she died of a heart attack. Fred Peterson is the father of the kid who was R-worded and then killed, Frankie Peterson. So I don't know, it's getting weird. So we're still waiting on the DNA. It hasn't came back, but they have video proof that he was at the seminar with the author and he asked a question. It's on video, they have his voice, they have everything. So now I'm completely confused, and the only thing I could think of, like if I'm making a prediction, a guess, is that there's some like psycho dude out there who pretends to be other people and then goes kills other people, but that's all I could think of. So Terry's wife just asked Ralph, she says, do you think that he actually murdered that kid? And he says, I don't know. And she says, okay, so go to the jail and ask him if he murdered him. Like look him in the eyes and see what he says. There's doubt in the air. Like after the footage that came out and everything that's happening, there's doubt and there's speculation. So people are trying to put pieces together and they don't know what's really happening. That's where we're at. So Ralph goes to the jail and he interviews him. He asks him questions and they have a little back and forth about this person's evidence versus this person's evidence. And then he asked him, did you kill him? And he tells him, no, I did not. But Ralph still doesn't believe it 100%. So they just had the arrangement. Everybody's in court. Howie is talking to Anderson. Howie is the lawyer for Terry. And Howie tells Anderson that Arlene Peterson passed away, like she died of a heart attack. And then they get into this back and forth, and the DNA finally came back, and the semen DNA matched the DNA on the cheek swab of Terry. So it's a bit confusing. Like even Anderson is confused now because he's like, the DNA matches, but there's also video evidence of him at the seminar, and they ran fingerprints on one of the books that he touched at the seminar, and they match his fingerprints. So now it's a toss-up. Okay, that was an eventful chapter. Okay, so they're doing the arrangement. They're in the courtroom. It's pure chaos, utter chaos. And Ollie Peterson, who is Frankie Peterson's older brother. Frankie Peterson is the one who was R-worded and died, who is Arlene Peterson's son. Arlene Peterson is the one who passed away of her heart attack. So Ollie Peterson shows up and he starts shooting at Terry. And he's shooting at him. And then so finally, Ralph has to control the situation. So he pulls out his gun and he shoots Ollie Peterson right in his forehead and he dies. So now the mom has died, the little brother has died, and the older brother has died. So you get this feeling, you're like, hey, like you feel bad. And it's like Frankie died like a week ago, and then a week and a half from his death, Arlene dies, the mom. And then maybe like 4 or 5 days after she dies, the older brother dies. And so you're like, man. And then the chapter ends, and then you keep reading and you find out that, like, you find out in the first chapter that he shot Terry, but it like grazed his ear or like his hair. And then you find out that he got hit twice once in his heart. And his wife is over him screaming. His wife's name is Marcy. She's over him. She's screaming. Howie's there. And Ralph comes and he throws them all out of the way. And like he tries to like stop the bleeding. And he tells him, he's like, you're gonna die. You got hit right above your heart. Like you're not gonna make it. He says, so like give your dying confession to like clear your conscience. He's like, did you kill Frankie Peterson? He's like, no, I didn't. He says, so how are you gonna clear your conscience? And the chapter ends. And I was like, yo, like so much happened. But let me keep reading. I haven't been filming much reading, like me reading. I haven't been filming me reading. So I'm gonna pick it up a little bit and go from there. Oh, quick point I want to add. Ralph tells him, like, you should wear a vest, you should wear a vest. And Howie's like, no, I don't want him to wear a vest because it'll look like he's convicted. And he got hit right here. And if you know about like a bulletproof vest, it covers like your chest. Okay, Fred Patterson, that's the father of Frankie Patterson, the husband of Arlene Patterson, and also the father of Ollie Patterson. All three of them have died. Fred just tried to hang himself. And then midway, he tried to like come back, like he didn't want to do it. But then like he started suffocating. And then the branch snapped, and then like the neighbor heard it and she ran over there. She gave him CPR. So he's in the ICU. But something else, there's been like this story kind of underneath of a kid who hated his stepdad. He stole a whole bunch of cars and he made it all the way to like New Mexico or like Texas, and he got caught. And the van in the beginning that the kid was kidnapped and put in, that van came from New York. And they're like, how did that van come from New York? Well, that kid is from like the East Coast, like from that area. He stole it and he drove it to Ohio. And he's like, oh, I left it there. And they're like, well, still, how did it get here? Because it's in Oklahoma. Well, Terry said that he took a trip to Ohio to go visit his dad. Oh, and second thing, Terry's daughter, she had like a nightmare is what they called it. And she says she saw this person and he had like a Play-Doh face and he had straw eyes. And I was like, okay. But then when Fred was hanging himself, like before he went unconscious, he said he saw somebody and it was like this figure and they had straw eyes. Ralph went to Marcy's house. Marcy is Terry's husband, and he went to talk to her and she kind of got upset. She shut the door in his face, but he told her, if your husband didn't kill him, then that means that the killer is still out there. And that kind of stuck with her. Ralph is on leave, like he's not working after the incident. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack, kind of just gonna be all over the place. So Ralph goes to Marcy's house and they have like their little talk, their interview, and she tells him about like how they went to Dayton, but he was with her the whole time and they went to go see his dad. They talked about the relationship that Terry had with his dad. It wasn't a good one. Terry's dad divorced his mom to marry his secretary, things like that. But he asked her, like, did anything weird happen? Would anything happen that was unusual? And his daughter comes downstairs and she says, Daddy had got a cut. And everybody's like, that's kind of weird because it was out of nowhere. She's like, yeah, it wasn't anything major. He's like, can you explain it? And then she explains it. And when he explains it, he gets like this look in his eye and you're kind of like, oh, okay, like he knows something. But Howie's there, Alec is there, the other detective is there, and they all kind of see him. And then Alec asks him, Alec is a cop who used to be a cop. Now he's a detective and he works for the other side. He just feel like he wrongfully convicted people. So now he's like a detective in defense cases. So Alec asks him, he says, she mentioned the cut, you got a look in your eye. Like, what is that about? And he's like, nothing. And he kind of just leaves it. Another thing happened is this guy, a kid, he got sent to this farm to pick up like cans. Like his dad told him to go pick up these cans. And he gets there and he says, Dad, there's somebody living here. His dad's like a homeless person. He's like, no, this person, like he lives here, all of his clothes are here. And his dad's like, that's whatever. He said, but the clothes he's wearing are the same clothes that they said Terry was wearing when they described him when he kidnapped the kid. Another detective goes look at it. His name is Jack. He goes there and he's there by himself and he says he sees somebody. And he's like, oh no, it was nothing. And then he says, oh, I see somebody. And like, it says like it grabbed him and they strangled him and he could feel it. And he tried to scream and he couldn't scream. And then he turned around and there was nothing there. And then he left and then he thinks like maybe it's just like his imagination. So a lot has happened. Okay, so a lot has been happening. Alec, Howie, Ralph, and Yoon are all kind of not working as a team, but they sat down and they had a meeting to discuss what happened because Ralph swears that he saw somebody, a burn victim, wearing a bandana, but it could have also been a shirt, but it was the same shirt that Terry had been wearing. And he says that he saw him when Terry had got shot. When they watched back the footage, he wasn't there. Yoon was like, no, I saw him there. And Alec, who's actually on their side, was like, no, I saw him there too. But they're like, why is he not showing up on camera? Ralph's wife has already considered the fact that it could be something supernatural happening. Ralph doesn't want to believe it. He doesn't believe in things like that. So he's like, no. So Grace, Terry's daughter, has just had another dream. And in the dream, she said this figure didn't have a Play-Doh face anymore and he didn't have straw eyes. He had the same eyes as her dad. And he also was wearing the same shirt that her dad used to wear. And he said, I want to tell you something, but like her sister shakes her and wakes her up. And then they go downstairs and they're watching a movie and she says like, I don't want to watch this movie. So she goes upstairs, she uses her mom's phone and she wants to call Detective Anderson, Ralph, but the number's not in there. So she calls Howard and says, is everything okay? And she says, no, a man came to me and it might have been a dream, but I want to be safe just in case. And he told me he'll leave me alone if I tell Detective Anderson to stop. And if Detective Anderson doesn't stop, somebody's gonna get hurt. So that was my initial thought, that like it's some like creepy dude who could like pose as other people and he goes around like killing people. So they had a meeting, everybody, there was a group, and Alec, who used to be the cop, who's now like the detective who works for Howie, the lawyer, said that he knows somebody who could do detective work up in Dayton, Ohio. And he calls her name is Holly. And so now she's up there doing detective work. Okay, so we just finished Holly's part and it's crazy. Literally like almost the same exact thing that happened to Terry happened to another person. There was a person who used to work at the place where Terry's dad was at. He used to work there. He went on vacation to go visit his mom. While he was on vacation, 2 girls got R-worded and killed. And they said that it was him. And he's like, it can't be me, I wasn't here. And they're like, so they had that whole thing. He ended up hanging himself and dying. Holly's going through all of it. She's like, this sounds familiar. She sounds like something happened. And the same thing happened like where they asked like, did anything weird happen? And his daughter was like, yeah, dad got a cut on his hand, but that was it. The same thing had happened to him where like he had got a cut on his hand. And okay, so a lot has happened. It's been a while since I've updated. Okay, so Holly, she did her investigation. She did everything. And she says, how is it possible for one person to be in 2 different places at once? She says the outsider. So that's what she calls them. She calls them an outsider. She scheduled a trip to come visit them in Oklahoma. So she's going to fly down from Dayton. She's going to have a meeting with all of them. That's the part that I'm at right now. But I'm just thinking of things that have happened since I last updated. She's flying down. She's going to come meet them. She had the whole thing where she found out about everything that happened in Dayton. And the outsider, the thing itself, has came and it visited Jack again. It visited him in the barn, like the little shed. It visited him there. And then it came again like 2 days later, maybe. It came to his house and it visited him and gave him like a sunburn on the back of his neck. And when he's there, he could tell like this isn't a sunburn, but when he leaves, he's like, is this a sunburn? And then it also came and it visited Jeannie, which is Ralph, Detective Anderson. That's his wife. And it came one morning and it visited her there and it told him everything will go back to normal, but just tell him stop. If he doesn't stop, everybody's gonna get hurt and I'm gonna kill all of them. And so it had tattoos on its knuckles and it had the same tattoos as one of the first people that he interviewed. He was a bouncer at the Gentleman's Club, which is just a strip club. So he ran like a little investigation because the owner of the strip club says he's in Texas. And then he's like, okay, so he has like the Texas police go visit him. And his mom's like, yeah, he's been here. She says, so how could he have visited you last night if he's in Texas? It's just a shapeshifter. Like I've realized that. I've realized that a while ago. Like it's a person who could clone and look like somebody else. That's what it is. But we're at the part right now where Holly is meeting with them. She just flew in. She just landed in Oklahoma and she's going to have a meeting with them. And I'll update you guys when it's done. Okay, so just finished reading. It was a lot of dialogue, a lot of her explaining the legend of who the outsider is. She played a DVD and explained, but of course, Anderson still doesn't believe it. And it's kind of frustrating at this point because there's a group of them, there's a room of them, and everybody's even along, like, because that's the only thing that makes sense. Like, how could a person be in 2 different places? So that's the only thing that makes sense is like, it's a supernatural being. Anderson still isn't he still doesn't believe it, but his wife is there, Marcy is there, Howie's there, like everybody's there. And everybody at least has like an open mind or like an ear to listen. And he's like, nope, can't be real, can't be real. Which ultimately, I think is why he's going to end up dead, because he doesn't believe it can happen. And so like, he's so close-minded, like, no, it can't happen, it can't happen. So he's not going to see it coming. Where the rest of them are all kind of prepared. The rest of them are all like, this is very much possible. I read this morning, but they were doing like landscaping at my house, so it was very noisy. So I came to work, and now I'm reading again. Ralph has finally come aboard, like he believes it. They're all gonna go talk to Bolton, where he's a bouncer at the strip club. They believe the shapeshifter's gonna transform into him next. He's in Texas visiting his mom. They're all headed to Texas now. They're all gonna go meet. Oh, Jack, the other detective cop kind of person, he had to come back early. This is way back in the story. He had to come back early from vacation, but he's been attacked multiple times by the outsider, and he was actually waiting outside of Ralph's house because the outsider tells him to do something to Ralph, but we don't know what it is. I'm guessing it's kill him or warn him. Holly ran a test. She did like this thing with like scotch tape and black lights, and I think that's what got Ralph to believe, because he's the same residue that was left in like the barn was similar, or like kind of the same residue that was left in his house. And so he asked her like, was he here? And then she said, yeah, he was here. She says, I'm not sure, but I'm not like unsure. You kind of get the gist. So all right, so I'm home. I'm gonna start reading. I don't remember what the last update was, but it'll be in the video, hopefully. If not, sorry. Okay, so update. They're still in Texas. They talked to Lovey, and she gave them this whole story about this hole where people used to go down, and they would get lost, and they sent dozens and dozens and dozens of people down there. They all got lost. It's like a cave, and it's a maze, and you get lost in there. So some of Bolton's cousins are in there, and this outsider, once it takes over your body, it likes to sleep where your bloodline has died. So it'll go to like a grave or somewhere where the people who related to you or close to you have passed away. So they think it's going to go there. And they're all having this meeting, and Howie says, what if he has an accomplice? Like, what if he has somebody working with him? And they're like, no, that can't be the case. But I don't know if I said Jack, who got attacked at the shed when he first found him, and it touched his back of his neck. He said that it gave him cancer, and he told him like the only way to get rid of this is to go after Ralph. And so Jack has been following them, keeping an eye on them from a distance the whole entire time. And so he's like, what if he has an accomplice? What if he has somebody working with him? He's like, no, he doesn't have an accomplice. He doesn't have an accomplice. There's nobody working with him. He's working alone. But they're in Texas, and Jack is in Texas. He's following them. Okay, so update. They all set out on their trip, go to the hole. They got there, and then it was boarded up, so they left, and they were like, maybe he's not here, maybe he's just around here, the outsider. And while looking for the outsider, they ran into Jack. Jack had been camping out, waiting for them. He saw them go into the hole. He saw them come out the hole. They came out the hole, and they were headed to a souvenir shop. He shot two of them. He killed two of them. He killed Alec, the detective who works for Howie, and he killed Howie. And then he shot and he hit Yoon, Ralph, and Holly. They're still alive. But when Jack was first wading out to like looking for his shot, waiting, a rattlesnake had came, and he picked up the rattlesnake and he flung it back. And then the rattlesnake came out again. And when he fired his first shot, it like startled the rattlesnake, and then he fired like a couple of more shots. And then eventually the rattlesnake bit him in his calf, and then bit him on his thigh, and I think bit him on his hand, but his calf and his thigh for sure. Okay, so this last section is like action-packed. Jack meets them, and he tells them like, you have no business being here, like leave. He's gonna poison you the way he poisoned me. And she's like, how did he poison you? He's like, he just touched the back of my neck. But he's still angry, and he's trying to kill them, and he still has his gun. And Ralph tells him, he's like, put your gun down. He doesn't put his gun down. He's like, put your gun down. He doesn't put his gun down. And he lifts it up and he aims it, and then Ralph shoots him 3 times, and then he kills him. So now Howie has died. Alec has died. Yoon didn't die. He just got shot in his arm and it dislocated his elbow. And now Jack has died. So now in the cave, it's just Ralph and Holly. Okay, so I just finished it. It was good. I liked it. At the end, they go into the cave and he's down there and he says, you came this far, you might as well come talk to me. And then they have a little back and forth. They talk. Ultimately, Holly ends up killing him with the sock. I thought the sock was like garlic, but she said it's ball bearing. She killed him. His face turned to like this black thing, and then like worms spread everywhere. They killed him. They went back into the town, Texas, and they sorted everything out. And then they went back to their town, Oklahoma, or their state, I should say. And they sorted everything out. They got Terry's case fixed. He was deemed innocent and everything ended up resolving itself for the most part. They didn't explain to anybody besides the people who knew what exactly it was. They kept it a secret, but it was good. I just felt like maybe because he did say like he was transforming, so he was weaker, but I just felt like he was more scarier in the beginning and when he was controlling Jack and when he was talking to Terry's daughter and when he came to visit Jeannie. But when they went down there in the cave, just Holly and Ralph, when they went down there into the cage, he was very, like, he talked to them, he had a conversation, he seemed more like just like a normal person, but it was good. I liked it. That's the end of this vlog. I know I didn't record myself reading a lot. That's because I was really into this book. I don't know what book I'm gonna read next, but yeah, that's it.